Okay, I just picked up a comment on one of my videos, and they're saying, I mean, who knows who knows who it is behind the usernames and whatever. I mean, goodness knows my malignant narcissist Catholic godmother in Scotland had been criminally harassing me over email, and then when I blocked her over YouTube, and I contacted the Scottish police to report her because Scottish police don't take kindly to that kind of thing. I don't believe in the silly, fucking um, um, Mao Zedong style, report your family, be a watchdog for anyone who's going against who doesn't want to be a big droplet of water with him. Um, but um, but I felt that the Scottish police would probably deal with her. Unfortunately, the Scottish police said they can't do anything until I report it to my local police station, and then they can refer it to them to handle. Now, I do believe the Scottish police would do something about it, but of course the police here aren't going to do anything about it. So again, I've got the fucking, I've just got these bouncers to justice everywhere. Anyway, whatever, she's in Scotland, and um, um, like I can stamp those little fires if she makes different accounts and whatever, but um, I think I'm getting good at eventually, given enough time, to pick up the fakes from the real deal. And so someone had admitted that it was they who had called the police that caused the welfare check yesterday with those two young female constables. But you do just get sick of it, and I think that what I need to do. I mean, I'm in no position to put together a timeline because a timeline is something that I've needed to do for a very long time for legal reasons. And I've been trying to do it for 2 years, but the trauma and stuff, it just doesn't work. And I don't know if my memory is going to work very well, but I'm not going to take on the burden of doing a timeline of things that had happened in Wellington, because I did start again in Christchurch when I arrived here in late June 2022. And instead of having a fresh start in the way that it connotes, I had a fresh start of fresh hell. And I've been abused just over and over and over again by every man and his dog. Uh, Arguably, the worst abuses have been by the two close friends I made here. One who I had lots of red flags about, and the other one that I had only a couple, and then once I was basically in her power, as in living in her, well, I was living in both their homes, that's when they struck. And then I've been really badly abused by medical personnel, or agencies, or, that kind of thing. And that includes directly with Pegasus 24 Hours Centre, who kicked me out with a security guard and attempted to serve a trespass document on me and failed. They tried, but they failed. And that's partly because of the fucking. I mean, really, the Trespass Act needs to be amended so you can actually email someone or something like that, but you can't. You can't email someone, which is the most reliable way to get in touch with someone. They just had some guy harassing me at my house, hanging outside my door, knocking at my door, and it's like, I'm not opening my door to you, mate. I've got a security camera. And I didn't know who it was who was trying to serve something on me, but I later found out it was from the horse's mouth who it was, and it was just fucking horrible. They totally, it was totally criminal, because you're allowed to refuse medical treatment, and all I did was refuse medical treatment from a really, really, really rude English doctor. I find English doctors very, very rude, and it's a cultural sort of thing. Um, the and those are middle class. If you're quite posh, no, if you're very posh, they're very good. I'm by no means classist like that. I find sort of Eton level accented people. Um, you can generally trust that they are very well bred, and it's not superficial. They tend to just be decent, respectful people. But if you get those kind of posh, but kind of with that kind of estuary accent, you're into trouble. And it's just like, fuck. And they still, they have those, like, they have those kind of posh names because, like Jack, which is a posh name now. It's obviously used to be like an old farmer, sort of in Yorkshire, and a tractor, but like Jock, but it's not anymore. And then there's the Harrys and stuff, and like anyone with that kind of, kind of a bit of a humble name, yeah. But the middle class ones are kind of emulating that, and they're squeezing into Eton and the ones sort of similar or slightly lower, but they're bringing the tone down, and they're not nice. And we're bringing in doctors who are not nice people, and I've been very badly abused by English doctors. But I've been treated very, very well by some English doctors as well, and they tend to they tend to have the proper sort of BBC voices. I have not met a Cockney doctor, so I imagine they're probably quite nice. It was just appalling criminal treatment of me. Anyway, and I've just been treated like shit. Both neglected in their duty of care, if not totally abandoned, or actively just psychologically abused by many social services. And I've just, and so many others, private citizens, business owners, like Farhan Sheikh from Lilo. Like, I'm not going to go into all of that. I can't possibly, and I'm starting in Christchurch because that's where my new life started. But I just want to do. I'm just going to attempt a little potted history of the police interactions I've had. So I was very wary of police because of a very nasty incident that happened in Wellington. But eventually, when I had so much criminal harassment from Caroline Register and her, her thugs at my apartment, supposedly managed by them, 71 Springfield Road, I was abused by them to the point, all manner of abuse as well. I mean, not limited to psychological abuse, but certainly including that. And that's, the fear of losing your home, and that's also just being never left alone at your home, and that's called property mobbing or real estate mobbing. So it's like any other kind of abuse, but the thing is that, unlike mobbing at work, which is bad enough and people do kill themselves over that kind of abuse or that site of abuse, at least they can go home. And I have been mobbed before, but I didn't realise that I was mobbed until I started learning about mobbing. I just didn't know why I wasn't getting any traction and why everyone seemed to be forming a united front against me. Now I know that I've been mobbed at work many times, and I'm very much among the personality types of people who get mobbed, and it often happens in government departments, because it's in government departments that once you get into government, which is supposed to be a very hallowed role, it's once you get into government, then you can just do what the fuck you want for the rest of your life. John Key made a good effort of sweeping out getting the chaff out, but chaff comes back in as senior leadership, unfortunately. So I'm not going to go into all of that, but yeah, so I was being so badly abused that eventually it was just like I have to ask the police for help, because I can't get help anywhere else. And I got a lot of really, really supportive interaction and advice and information from Team 5 staff. I'm not sure what the difference between 10.5 and 111 is in terms of the personnel. I'm not sure if people who take 111 calls are more highly, if they have a different sort of like, I think that I know 10.5 staff are civilians. I think that 111 staff are civilians as well. But I don't know if 111 staff have a different kind of clearance level or a different level of authority or training, or sometimes I wonder if maybe some of them are police. I'm not sure, but they don't tend to be. They are different. They're a different bunch of people. But I was really, really, really unwell in a not dissimilar way than I am now, but it was more, it hadn't got so physical at that point. It was just like I was just completely motherfucked from the abuse, and I was barely coping. And it was unfortunate that because I still kept my hygiene up. Hygiene's one of those things that's important to me, and I don't feel right. Like I don't feel like right lying in filth, but I couldn't do anything. My house was just it was just like a giant seething, it was just like a trash heap, and I couldn't do anything about it, and it was really distressing me. And mental health staff see that as a sign of a mental health disorder. It's just like hammer nail. It's like, okay, but someone else would come in, like a doctor, because these are mental health nurses. And I'm not saying a psychiatric doctor, I'm just saying maybe like a doctor who deals with chronic fatigue or, other illnesses, even if it's just a temporary illness, would come in and recognise this as someone who is very, very unwell and doesn't have the ability to take care of herself. Like I've recently interacted with someone who's bedridden with a bad stomach bug. You wouldn't call that a mental illness just because they can't get up and do their dishes or tidy up. It's not not everything that renders someone physically incapable of, tidying up, or bathing for that matter, has a mental illness, and I'm just so fucking sick of it. But I'm not for much longer, because I'm not going to be around to take that kind of abuse anymore. So when I would ring police, I was really asking for help, but I couldn't just answer their series of questions, because they are not trained to recognise the abuse as it affects victims of abuse. And it's like a video that I made recently, like, you can't step out of your disability or condition in order to explain what's happening. You are in it. If you are targeted repeatedly for abuse, the purpose of the abuse is to really destroy the person, and the person is on their way to being destroyed. Do you think you can just eloquently explain with perfect memory what's been happening. So anyway, long story short, I had months of trying to get police attention on it, and I was getting a lot of welfare checks, and I've recorded some of those. And it's either well-meaning cops or apparently well-meaning cops trying to find me mental health solutions or telling me how to suck eggs, or it's abusive cops who are coming to under the guise of a welfare check, just coming to abuse me. And that's why I asked for, because I know that I've asked police information urgently for a list of all of the welfare checks and the metadata about them, because they've got to protect the privacy of the people who are calling. And I know most of the people calling are probably repeats, and they know full well that I can't stand police welfare checks because it actually endangers my health and my life. And I've asked for that information urgently, and they said no, because it's got nothing to do with your trial coming up. And I said yes, it does have a lot to do with the trial, because I am under the Crimes Act, in the section which is corrupting witnesses and juries. I am a witness in this because for the purposes of that section, a witness is anyone who is going to give evidence. So, and corruption doesn't mean, brainwashing. It has a more general sense of just really trying to influence the person who is in a position to give evidence. And so police have been constantly just using any excuse, and I suspect this is why partly why I made the information request. I suspect that some of those deployments to welfare check me have not been on the book. I suspect that some of them have just been, let's say, freelanced welfare checks. So I'm just being out and out harassed. And so when I finally did go down to the station to make a formal complaint, which I was told by 10-5 that I did have to do, and that she gave me the impression I'd be, treated nicely and welcomed with open arms, I just got a brick wall. No, I wasn't allowed to. And this is not a potted history, I'm sorry, but I'm just trying to explain, people have got to stop calling the police. Firstly, the police do nothing, even if they're well-meaning. Secondly, the police are harassing me, and they are trying to harass me out of giving evidence against them on the 12th, because the police beat me up on the 4th, which was my first arrest, and then charged me with resisting arrest. And they've got no evidence, and I've got all the evidence. And Victoria Hicks knows that she's got nothing. And what I'm saying will sound implausible to ignorant middle class people, and I'm not saying that I'm not defining middle class people with the characteristic of ignorance. I'm talking about middle class people who also have the characteristic of ignorance and who don't understand that actually when you're not targeted by the police, maybe you can't imagine being targeted by the police, but that doesn't mean that it's not very well documented to happen, and that as a middle class person, and they're mostly lefties and fancy themselves activists, but as the song, if you tolerate this, then your children will be next. That line, it turns me into a gutless wonder. So, all you fake activists, as soon as it comes to doing anything, you all just go, oh no, ew, gross, get this political evil away from me, how yucky. and so they don't seem to even understand. We've got the IPCA. The IPCA doesn't do its job, so now we've got this other thing called the I never can remember what it's called because it's not quite self-explanatory, but it's a new anti-corruption team that's set up to worm out corruption in police, and there are criticisms of it. It was set up in 2017. It's done a lot of prosecutions, but it doesn't appear. It's just like, anything that's set up just, I don't know, it just devolves into some sort of fucking money-sucking mess. But it's enough for people who fancy themselves well read and well informed to show you that this fucking happens, and oh my god, it's happening to your niece, your daughter, your stepdaughter, your cousin, your sister, your friend, and all of a sudden all of your left-wing sensibilities just go down the fucking toilet, which is why I absolutely fucking despise the left wing. Absolutely fucking despise it. I'm right-wing, I'm proud of it. I live by my principles, not my personal comfort. So I was harassed. I've been arrested. So I've been wrongfully arrested and charged once, but that was something approaching by the book. But I've also been, and then I was arrested a second time for something that I did do, which was on purpose, so that I could get my abuser, who's Caroline Register, into the courtroom. But I mean, what I did wasn't anything that actually affected her. It was just a threat. So it's a concept. So I haven't done anything like, I haven't made an attempt on her safety or anything like that. And, it could be argued that, it is argued and it will be argued that I damaged her psychologically, but psychopaths don't get damaged psychologically like that. That's not how it works. So, I own that one, but in the sense that I can't say that it was unlawful. It was certainly a lawful arrest and charge, and which is exactly what I was aiming for, but I'm not going to be around to deal with that. And then I was arrested twice more, which were, again, freelancing cops, who later cooked up a story after I pushed hard enough for some information about it, because they knew they couldn't get away forever pretending it didn't happen. And I've just been harassed, and I've had, like this cop turn up the other day while I was out, and I've got footage that I'll upload that my neighbour took, and she said that I could load it, and I said, are you sure? Because it's going to show you where the footage came from. It's going to show, from the angle of the footage, it's going to show who it was. She said that's fine, because she's got her own reasons. So I'm going to upload that. Now, I do want the footage from the motel owner, because there are video cameras everywhere and it's showing what she didn't manage to capture in time, but it was them coming up to my place and finding me not home because I was out with her mum trying to take things to the storage unit in case I've got to get out of here. It's not going to happen, not while I'm alive. So we got a call that, there's someone here that's looking for me, and because they'd seen footage of one of the illegal, totally freelance arrests from my ring cam, the person who took the footage believed it was the same person. I tend not to think so, but it doesn't matter. It's all part of the same thing. So, having not found me there, they just waited in their vehicle until I shouldn't say his name, but until the South Carlin Motor Lodge in Sherborne Street in St Albans, Christchurch, 8014 New Zealand, Christchurch. He went to us on their business, and supposedly they were looking for someone who used to live here but doesn't anymore. It's like, okay. because when I rang 111 while I was still in the car when we were out, there was no record of anything being deployed, so that's a fucking lie. So, so I'm being harassed by police, so please, nobody, please just stop. Just don't get police. The police are the fucking problem. And even if you don't respect that, please respect the fact that I've got PTSD. I've got an MRI, as I keep saying, I've got an MRI that shows that I have increased white matter, associated with an ageing brain. I've been referred to debt collection for the MRI, which is $800, which I haven't been able to pay, and I've been really, really meaning to get back to them and apologise and sort something out, but everything keeps happening. Like, I'm constantly, as I say, I'm constantly ambushed and thrown off the path that I'm on. So I'm now at debt collection with them for this MRI that $800. Ministry of Justice doesn't fund injuries caused by psychological trauma, brain injuries. It is a brain injury. They only do it for physical impact injuries, and that's fine. I agree to those terms and conditions. I'm not saying that I'm not liable for the money. I am, and I'm really, really sorry, but I've had so much going on, and Windsor isn't paying me enough because they're being crooked fucking fucks. And so yeah, I'm with debt collection there, and but yeah, it shows that it doesn't. I can't afford more more investigations into it, so I can't get a proper sort of like trail to show that what I'm experiencing, even though what I'm experiencing was the reason I was sent for an MRI, and that MRI shows that the symptoms of that particular kind of condition produces the symptoms that I'm getting. It's not enough to draw a causative line between them, but it's sort of reasonably clear that, I'm saying this as a person quite devoted to science. I'm saying that it's more than a coincidence that the symptoms that I was reporting, including loss of balance, okay, it's not a psychiatric problem, it's physically loss of balance, it's neurological, is also, I didn't know this, one of the symptoms of this stuff as well. So, you go for a brain MRI, people don't realise that the brain is it's not psychiatric, it's what gives instructions to the whole body. So the instructions are misfiring all over the show. So it's affecting the movement of my limbs and that kind of thing. And it also means that I've got a significantly heightened stroke risk. So can you please not call? I can call fucking emergency services myself, thank you very much. And I was told by a senior nurse at Crisis Resolution, or somewhere in that maze, like a year ago. His name was Richard, I can't remember his last name, but he said, we know that you're perfectly capable of ringing us if you want to. And he was going to do his best to make sure that people who call them don't get what they want, like for them to send a mental health crisis, because it gives me a fucking shock. I have PTSD, it sets off my PTSD, and I don't have a choice about what my body does. It's not about calming down and not being hysterical. I'm not hysterical, I can feel perfectly calm, but my blood pressure is through the fucking roof. Do you understand? I don't have control over it. It's an autonomic process. And my heart rate, when I get tachycardia, it's okay at this stage because it's called sinus tachycardia. It means it's a sinus rhythm, and that's a very stable rhythm. If it was a rhythm, if it was out of kilter, that would indicate, okay, this could be like a serious cardiac event. But at the moment, I do have a stroke risk because of the blood pressure, and it's been going on for too long for it to just be like, I can't afford it anymore. So if you wanna kill me, call the police. If you want to help me, write to the United Nations. Just don't call the police anymore. Thank you. Bye.